Okay, we need to talk about Gwyneth Paltrow exposing her ex-boyfriends, Jameela Jamil savagely calling out celebrities for going to the Met Gala, and the awkward question that someone asked Halle Bailey. Alright, so have you ever looked at Brad Pitt and Ben Affleck and wondered who is better in bed? Well, there is one person who can answer that question, it's Gwyneth Paltrow. And she just did. Yesterday she spoke about it on the Call Her Daddy podcast, and it's no wonder that the interview went viral. I mean, really, this is something people have wanted to know since the early 2000s. She said that is really hard because Brad was sort of like the major chemistry love of your life kind of hookup, and then Ben was like technically excellent. Alright, so we definitely know what that means. She did say that they were both good kisses, but out of the two of them, she admitted that Brad had better style and was more romantic overall. As for Ben, she said he had a better sense of humor and said that he used to make a funny face in the mirror every time he passed one. So that makes him seem like he would be a bit more fun and an easygoing boyfriend. Gwyneth must still be on a high from winning that ski crash trial because this interview was really crazy. At one point she even played a game of F, Marry, Kill, and her choices were between Ben, Brad, and her ex-husband Chris Martin. In the end, she decided that she would remarry Chris because he gave her 2 children, she would sleep with Brad again, and then of course she would have to kill Ben. Most people remember that she was engaged to Brad from 1994 to 1997, and then she dated Ben Affleck from 1997 to 2000 before moving on to Chris. When speaking about her relationship with Brad, she says that it was love at first sight. Quote, "I think I was really a kid, like more than a lot of other 22, 23, or 24-year-olds I would meet now. I really hadn't explored who I was or what was important to me, what my boundaries were, anything like that. I was totally heartbroken when we broke up, but it was just the right thing at the time and it was really hard." She said that back then she still had a lot of development to do and had such a pleasing issue. She also really didn't understand how to listen to her own instincts and act from that place. At another point in the interview, she revealed whether or not she hooked up with Leonardo DiCaprio. Well, apparently he tried to make out with her and she shut him down because of his reputation as a player. She said he tried back in the day, but he was already very loose with the goods from when he was like 19. She also insisted that she never hooked up with Johnny Depp despite all the rumors that were going around at the time. Apart from her dating life, Gwyneth also talked about what it was really like winning an Oscar at the age of 26. Most people remember her acceptance speech for the fact that she broke down into tears while she was thanking her parents. Even though she was showing a moment of genuine vulnerability, somehow it all backfired on her. She was criticized by the media and even other celebrities who didn't feel like she was worthy of the award. At the time, fellow actors like Glenn Close said that it didn't make sense that she won. Gwyneth said, "It felt like a real pivot on that night because I felt like up until that moment, everyone was kind of rooting for me. And then when I won, it was like too much and I could feel a turn. I was 26, I cried and people were so mean about it. I just thought, wow, there's this big energy shift that's happening. I think I'm going to have to learn to be less open-hearted and much more protective of myself and filter people out better." What the media didn't know at the time was that her father was actually sick with cancer. He ended up passing away 3 years later in 2002. Gwyneth said, "I remember I was working in England and I remember the British press being so horrible to me because I cried. And they didn't necessarily know that my father was dying of cancer. He was really debilitated. It was just this like totally overwhelming moment." On top of that, winning the Oscar never really gave her the satisfaction that she was after. Apparently it led to an identity crisis where she realized that she didn't even love acting as much as she thought. I mean, imagine realizing that after you win an Oscar. A lot of it had to do with all the public scrutiny, which only became more intense in the early 2000s. Eventually, Gwyneth just decided to pursue another career path. She ended up launching Goop in 2008, and that's how she became the ultimate almond mom that we see today. Alright, now let's talk about all these celebrities getting called out for attending the Met Gala. As we know, the theme was honoring Karl Lagerfeld and his legacy, but this turned out to be a pretty controversial idea that not everyone agreed with. One of those people was actress Jameela Jamil, who was an extremely outspoken critic of the event. Shortly after hundreds of celebrities walked the carpet, she called them out for hypocrisy. In a scathing post on Instagram, she wrote, "Last night Hollywood and fashion said the quiet part out loud when lots of famous feminists chose to celebrate at the highest level a man who was so publicly cruel to women, to fat people, to immigrants, and to SA survivors. And all the women's publications and spectators online chose to gleefully ignore it." Jameela called Lagerfeld a known bigot that was somehow awarded the biggest honor possible. She called out all the celebrities who attended and claimed that they only decided to separate the artist from the art just because it was convenient. One of the main things she criticized was the double standards in Hollywood, especially when it comes to holding people accountable. So her post wasn't just about the designer, it was more about the selectiveness of cancel culture. In the caption she wrote, "It's about showing why people don't trust liberals because of slippery tactics and double standards like this." She concluded her statements by saying that if people carry on like this, they shouldn't be shocked when we lose the next election. Back in October, when the theme was first announced, Jameela called out the Met Gala on Twitter. She wrote, "This man was indeed supremely talented, but used his platform in such a distinctly hateful way, mostly towards women, so repeatedly and up until the last years of his life, showing no remorse, offering no atonement, no apology, no help to the groups that he attacked. There was no explanation for his cruel outburst." And then she went on to list the ways in which she believes that Karl was actually very problematic and unhelpful to certain social movements. She said, "Why is this who we celebrate when there are so many amazing designers out there who aren't bigoted white men? What happened to everyone's principles and advocacy? You don't get to stand for justice in these areas and then attend the celebration of someone who revealed his own public disdain for marginalized people." But Jameela was far from the only celebrity protesting the gala. In fact, quite a lot of them just chose not to show up. We're talking about stars like Kris Jenner, Justin and Hailey Bieber, Zendaya, Sarah Jessica Parker, Lady Gaga, Blake Lively, and Ryan Reynolds. Yes, some of them were busy with prior commitments, but most of them were said to have very open schedules. So it seems like they chose to snub the event for their own reasons. Out of all the stars that did attend, a lot of them protested the theme in subtle ways, like wearing the color pink, which Karl Lagerfeld was known to very much despise. But no one was able to fully avoid the criticism for being there. Lizzo got the worst of it, considering that she chose to honor the designer by wearing a pearl-embellished custom Chanel gown. She posted a photo of herself eating fries in the dress, and that really seemed to set people off. Her comment section was filled with people calling her out for hypocrisy. One person wrote, "Karl Lagerfeld had terrible things to say about curvy, full-figured, women-sized individuals. He only ever hired models undersized too. I don't understand why so many celebrities supported this year's theme and attended. What they're referring to is his history of openly criticizing women's bodies, especially if they don't fit into the beauty standards of high fashion. He also openly mocked the body positivity movement, which is something that we all know Lizzo stands for. So it makes sense that her fans felt kind of let down by her attendance." Another person who got absolutely slammed was Kim Kardashian. Piers Morgan called her out in an opinion piece for the New York Post. He called her a hypocrite for attending the event because of everything that Karl stood for, like the fact that he was against the Me Too movement and gay marriage. Piers also pointed to the fact that Lagerfeld was one of Kim Kardashian's biggest critics. He essentially blamed her for the violent Paris robbery in 2016 and said that she should have expected it because she flaunted her wealth on Instagram. So Kim was basically paying tribute to the man who publicly shamed her. And that really makes you look at the whole event with a different perspective. Alright, now have you seen this new Halle Bailey interview that's been going viral? Now that there's only a few weeks until the premiere of the live-action Little Mermaid, a whole lot of people are talking about it, including the star of the movie, Halle Bailey, who will be bringing the iconic Disney princess to life. This week she walked the red carpet at the Met Gala in a lacy floor-length dress with an extravagant cape. She definitely had an old Hollywood glamour vibe with such a beautiful curled bob. Aside from her outfit though, fans were a lot more focused on one particularly strange interview. She was speaking to someone from The Cut magazine who asked her, "If you had to eat flounder or Sebastian, who would you eat?" Halle was clearly startled at the question because it was just so ridiculous. But then she came through with like the most Disney princess response ever. She said she wouldn't eat any of them because she considers them her friends. And it's safe to say that clip went viral and it has around 2.5 million views on TikTok. Unsurprisingly, people had some very strong opinions about it. Fans wrote things like, "Why would you even ask that? And what kind of question is that?" There was also those who took it upon themselves to actually answer. Someone pointed out that Sebastian would be good in a seafood boil. But in all seriousness, Halle is literally a vegan, so of course she was never going to be able to pick one of them. As the premiere approaches, Disney has released some official posters for the movie. For the most part, all the characters look pretty decent except for Flounder. For some reason, the fish has really creeped a lot of people out. The general consensus is that the character design is unnecessarily realistic. It also looks nothing like the bright yellow animated version, who is joyful, chubby, and just super lovable. There's now a ton of memes making fun of the difference in appearance. Someone even made a joke that this new Flounder looks like he is taking Ozempic. Another person suggested that he has undergone buccal fat removal, which explains why he looks so thin. To be fair, most of the hate comes from the idea that this character just looks too lifelike and emotionless. As an example, think about what was done in the 2019 remake of The Lion King, where the lions were just so realistic that they were not able to express any emotion. One user tweeted, "The problem with the realistic design is that he doesn't look sentient. There's no light behind his eyes. This doesn't look like someone teasing her friend, it looks like someone doing animal cruelty. But aside from the flounder issue, this adaptation is actually going to be different in a lot of ways. As we know, in the original film, Ariel relinquishes her voice and drastically changes her body for the man of her dreams, which is not exactly what you would call a very empowering message. Halle said, "What's beautiful about this version of The Little Mermaid is that it's a lot more modern. When we saw it when we were younger, she gave up everything for the guy, but I don't think that reflects modern women today. So now it's more about Ariel finding freedom for herself because of this world that she's obsessed with." She says that in this new story, Prince Eric is going to be more like a cherry on top, but the movie is not all about him. So that already sounds like it's going to change the storyline in a major way. Halle also looks fantastic as Ariel, and she says a big part of that comes down to her hair. She explained that a significant portion of prep time on set was actually devoted to analyzing how her hair moved in water. She said, "It was super important for me to have my natural hair in this film. I've had my locks since I was 5, so they're a huge part of who I am. We need to be able to see ourselves. We need to be able to see our hair on big screens like this, so that we know it's beautiful and more than acceptable." And that right there is why there is just so much hype for this new movie. From what we've seen so far, they've done an incredible job of not only bringing a new version of Ariel to life, but also giving the story a much needed update. So will you be lining up to see it? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.